Hey y'all, it's Ron. You ain't gonna believe this. You are not gonna believe this, okay? This is Sunday afternoon, okay? It's about 1:15 Central Time at my house. I was sitting in my chair and on my tablet watching YouTube videos. And for some reason in the back of my head, a thought went out and it said, you ought to check to see if the national park, the Shenandoah National Park, has a lost and found, just by chance. So I searched out on the internet and I found a general information phone number for the Shenandoah National Park headquarters. Well, after listening to the recording for a few minutes, there was a directory, and one of the directories said, for all other information, contact the Bryant Visitor Center at extension blah, blah, blah. Well, the Bryant Visitor Center is the visitor center at Big Meadows Campground. Anyhow, I called up there and I punched in the number, and a gentleman answered the phone, and he was a ranger. And I said, do you have a lost and found? He said, yes, we do. He said, how can I help you? I said, I lost a tripod. I left a tripod up there last week when I was there. And I says, just by chance, did somebody turn in a tripod? He said, yes, somebody did turn in a tripod. He said, can you describe it? I said, yes. I said, the ball head on it, the top of it says RRS, for really right stuff. And he said, let me place you on hold for a minute and I'll get right back to you. So after a brief few minutes, he comes back. He says, I believe we have your tripod. I said, you gotta be kidding me. I don't believe this. And he said, it says really right stuff on top. And I said, and the legs on the tripod should say Robus. He goes, yep, this is your tripod. I says, oh my goodness. I said, somebody turned it in. I can't believe this. He said, yes. I said, do you have the gentleman's phone number and name? I would love to call him and I want to send him something. I want to send him a reward. He said, yes, I'll give that to you in just a minute. I said, how can I get the tripod back to me? He kind of chuckled. He said, where do you live? I said, I live in Tennessee. He says, where in Tennessee? I said, I live in Crossville, Tennessee. Here comes miracle number 2, guys. He says, I know where that's at. He says, I am a seasonal employee. And he says, I will be going home for the season on November the 1st. He says, and I live in Chattanooga. I said, oh my gosh. And he says, where do you live exactly? And I told him, and he says, I know where Crossville is. He said, I will be coming through Rockwood, Tennessee when I go home because I come over that way and go down Highway 27. So anyways, my tripod has been found. This is a miracle. Now, let me tell you about the phone call conversation. I called the gentleman who found the tripod. He was so excited. He's retired civil service, retired military. He's about 60-some years old. I was at the Overlook at 9 a.m. He found the tripod at 2 p.m. on Monday, last Monday. That was the day I was there at that Overlook. He says, you mean you just had like a blank and you just left your tripod there? I said, yeah. I said, I can't believe it. I said, I didn't even know I left it there till after I got home. He said, oh my goodness. And I said, how did you find it? Was it on the ground or what? He says, no, it was set up on that wall. He said, like you just took your camera off of it and got in your car and left. I said, I did get in the car and left. And he says, I was there, and he said there were some people there, and I wasn't too sure if it was their tripod or whose tripod it was. And I waited, and he said everybody had left. And he said, I was there about 30 minutes taking some photographs myself. He's a photographer too. And he says, nobody took the tripod. He says, so I left it there because I didn't know what the deal was. He said, I went down the road to an overlook, came back, and the tripod was still there. I said, okay. He said to himself, whoever's tripod this is, they have left it. Okay. They had a lapsing moment or whatever, and they left it here. So he took the tripod, he took it up to the Bryant Visitor Center at Big Meadows, walked in the door, said, plopped it down on the counter, and he said, I think this belongs in Lost and Found. So the tripod has been found. Okay. this is like a miracle, okay, and a double miracle since the Ranger is going to bring it down with him next week, and I'll have it back in my hands. I can't believe that this has happened, okay? It's unbelievable. Anyways, the gentleman's supposed to send me his address, and I'm going to send him a reward because he deserves it, right? Saved me a whole bunch of money from having to replace this tripod. Anyways, I just want to get on here and do a quick update about that. I was going to write something, but I decided the video was more. My faith in humanity has been restored, okay? It has been restored thoroughly. Hey, we'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.